tables to come up. So table one, who's table one? Is that Jill? So Jill, could you just give maybe here, if you can? Richard, is that okay from here to be captured?
I can't find the cursor. Cursor's vanished.
So we're just from each group, we're just going to get a little round up from each of you. So we'll start with Jill and the kind of priorities. Please remember though that anything that you haven't written down and you've still got evaluation forms, use the back of your evaluation form to write something.
Is that working? Yes. Well, we had wonderful, great discussions about all parts of where we thought the heritage could go and the heritage view could go. What our table came up with time and again was how to get the story out. And this was in lots of different ways, but certainly with what we came up most was that we need more training, that there is expertise in the community, but there's also lots of pitfalls in how we use the various methods, and training came up with a high priority. We need to get that story out all sorts of different ways. So mapping came up and more collaboration came up, but the training on how to do this was definitely the highest priority. Part of the other thing, obviously for everybody, is funding, and that, which I'm sure everybody else has got, that is actual cash. But also how to apply for funding. So again, we're back to training again. And with the whole part of it is getting that story into the community, making it very much more relevant to locals, and also pushing the story out to visitors so that everything is much more accessible. The other part of it, particularly, is collaboration. What we've been doing today, collaboration, networking, learning from each other, and seeing how we can make best use of our resources.
Thank you. Thank you. Alison? So the second table, this is the table downstairs.
I'm glad we're going second because I think by the time we get to 6, it's going to get a bit repetitive. So hang on a minute. So what we could do without a full review and how I have on, so it's been suggested to me, and I did say when someone said this, I couldn't do it, was a social media campaign. But the proviso on that was it needs to be planned and it needs to be manageable. So it would be a case of having a social media plan that had little achievable steps through it, so that we could actually get a message out there to people about heritage around here. And the other one was to create a heritage trail for the 4 areas of Argyll, drawing on the knowledge that we already have. So not instead of a review, but we could actually make first steps in that already. So those would be immediate. Oh, see, I wrote the numbers so that when the sticker fell off, I knew what was where. So our four dotted ones were outreach and education, which is really about that collaboration again. Ensuring that everyone knows that they have a part to play in heritage and spreading the word. So taxi drivers came up quite a few times on our table. And you know, the amount that you can learn from help the taxi driver and get into the cab and tell them that you've just arrived. Our other 4 ones were heritage trail. This is the more sustainable long-term trail. And there was an emphasis on actually having something on paper for that too. People talking about, you know, not everybody wants to work online. And our third 4.1 was identifying currently unknown heritage providing site practitioners, which is obviously part of what makes up a review. You want me to go through all the rest of this program?
Okay, so table 3 was myself, and yes, very similar training came up in a big way and about sharing, training and mentoring. And
talking to people
around the table, there actually is enough resources in Argyll that we could deliver the training quite locally. We just bring in the experts. So we've got Alistair who could do the podcast training there and now. We've got archive training. We've got Alison. Funding, I don't think we've got anybody in that. But we have others that we could pull on to move things forward. But I think the only difference slightly from Alison and from Jill was at the table, our table, they came up with the fact that it's not just the localities that there are local stories. There is a bigger Argyll story, and the bigger Argyll story is lost. So I don't know how we take that forward. So the suggestion was that there was actually a working party set up to look at what is the bigger Argyll story and how do we take it forward, or could we take it forward? And the other bit that we think we could probably do is making people more aware of, for young people, of the pathways projects which were in the high schools. So pathways projects within the high schools where young people get the opportunity to go out and do it as part of their curriculum, to take part in it in projects. So Denolly, I know, has a pathways project. Mid Argyll, I think, is going to restart. Dunoon, David Mitchell down in Dunoon was actually the instigator of the Pathways project in Oban, so it's very active down in Dunoon. So it's how we could utilise what's already happening within the curriculum and maybe assisting with heritage sites. I think the other thing that came out was the trail, and yes, the heritage trail was definitely one that was top of the list from our side of it. But it was one thing that I really liked was about pooling resources. But we can't pool resources if we don't know who's doing what where. So that's why it's important that the review moves forward in some way. But there are only 5 of us. So I'm looking to the audience and I'm finding people and I'm thinking, yes, you could be a champion in that area so that we can pool the resources together and try and move it forward. But we will actually have to apply for funding for that. The 6 of us? There's 6 of us, see?
It's still not enough.
It's not enough. No, we need more. We need at least 66. So now on to table 4. Who was table 4? Is that Agif? Yep.
Remarked. So I shan't repeat ones that are just going to be covering the same ground. But we were talking about trying to get more under 30s onto committees and boards. Training again came up. So like we had said after Alistair's talk, undertake oral history recording in terms of technique and stuff to do with privacy, etc. And also the identification and empowering of tradition bearers before it's too late. And incidentally, I've been doing an oral history recording for 15 years in English and in Gaelic, so I can offer help with that. If that's any use. Cheers.
Next table is table 5.
Really our group came up with very similar points. So I can maybe just highlight a couple of specific aspects to that. On collaboration, one of the things that we felt could help small groups quite a lot is for bigger sites like Iona or Kilmartin Museum to do more in terms of linking with smaller sites. So the example was Iona with Lismore, which has got perhaps even more interesting archaeology and history to it. Pointing visitors from the big sites in the direction of smaller places. And I think generally in terms of kind of lending resources and lending knowledge would be one aspect of collaboration. Yeah, we also highlighted skills and education. And we decided that we would ask a task of the forum, which would be to sit down and have a dialogue with the University of the Highlands and Islands to convince them to cover Argyll in their archaeology and history courses. And also because we think that the students that they teach are a potential resource. They could be brought more into Argyll and to local areas and do some of that kind of support work. I mean, you're obviously tapping into a lot of that already, but we think that there's potential for that on a wider.
Friends board. So I'm like, yeah, come on. So I think, yeah, there's a discussion there to persuade people to bring students actually into the area, definitely.
And the other thing that UHI has is resources. And if you look to see some of the things that they've been doing on US Unearthed or Orkney in particular, just even if we were to bring a small portion of that into Argyll, I think it would make quite a contribution.
Thank you. Number 6 is Tara, I think.
Now, when my group were looking at this, we felt that one of our biggest problems was how to get locals to engage with our sites and with our spaces. We all had stories of people who had lived in the area all their life and had never been in. And so, there, okay, yeah. So, basically we thought, how do we do this? And we need to start at the beginning and with education. And I just want to say to begin with, I did not push this at all. This was not me. But so working with our schools, working with our primary schools, working with our high schools, getting them in and actually looking at maybe some sort of joint heritage forum project where we go in and promote our sites and promote the different sites, not just us going in, HES does their own thing or Carmarthen does their own thing or Denali does their own thing, but a much more joined up way of thinking of doing it. So education and funding for education development was a big thing for us. The other thing was actually like the others, it was the trails, it was a collecting card we were thinking. So like just a very simple card where people could get either a sticker or a stamp at each place. This could then get joined up with an app, but we wanted to have a non sort of online version, a sort of hand physical thing. And then it was basically just the working together in wider projects. We realised that many of our places, many of our sites and our heritage places had a joint heritage. So like, for example, my place at Dunstaffnage, we have quite a strong joint with Denali and with Inverurie Castle. We've got from our point of view, like both places, and we know that those places have the replies. So there are joint projects that we could do. But yeah.
Communication.
Work together, but
Communication. Thanks very much, Tara. So I particularly like that collecting card. It's like getting your coffee and getting it stamped and not just the big sites on it, but have some of the smaller sites on it as well. I think the trails we did briefly touch on, and again, it came up in mine, and I'm going to hold my hands up here and say it didn't come from me. But there is actually work started on the Wanderer Argyll trail that's already on the charts website, and there's potential there to develop that one further. So there are things that are happening that we could probably link into. But I think just for me, I think we have got a resounding yes, a review is required. Let's find out what's out there and then helping each other. But I think it goes back to the fact that we need you to remain engaged with the forum to make sure that things move forward, because if we could get enough people in different areas, so there's a few of us actually based in the Oban and Lorne Isles area, if we could get a strong links in the other areas of Argyll, we potentially will be able to have that bit further a reach. And I'm going to use my former chairman of the Rockfield Centre, when he used to come up here and talk, and he would say to the audience before they left, be like the spider and create the web and go out there and make sure that the networks come back to the forum. But it's about communication. Make sure you keep the communication coming to us. And that doesn't just mean the good
the good stories. That means the challenges. What challenges are you facing? Because without a doubt, you spoke there about bringing young people in from UHI. We're discovering that the young people are still, my family all went to school here, went away from the area, and they will not come back. But there are young people here who want to stay in the area. So how do we engage them into heritage? And there are some young people in this audience today. So we'll be asking them what keeps them in that job, to try and see whether we can actually progress that side of it as well, to get the engagement of young people. I'm going to pass it now to Anne, because I've done enough talking to just do the thank yous and finish up. Thanks very much, folks.
Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you. Well, today hasn't raised anything surprising, but what it has done is raised a lot of points that are incredibly interesting and valuable. I'm so pleased to see that everybody is in favour of, or the majority are in favour of a review. We need to find out all this information locally. And then we have to strip down these pockets on the wall and do the evaluation and take that back to our funders and look for funding to go to that next stage, which is the review. We still need more bodies and we need to be more inclusive. So at the moment we're 6 women, but we think we might have Argyll. Yeah. Yeah, you can't get out that way. But you know, we need young people, we need people with disabilities, we need, you know, everybody to participate in this. So you'll be hearing from us. So I'd like to thank everybody today, people who facilitated the table groups, people who've done the 5-minute bursts, my team especially, Richard, everybody's made it work so well. So thank you, everybody, and safe home.